Hey guys, so today I wanted to do an updated version of a video that was going around a couple of years ago here on beauty YouTube about the makeup collection I think I would have if I wasn't on YouTube. And I think I did this video a while ago, like at least 2 years ago at this point. And so I wanted to film an updated version. I just think it's really interesting to think about what my makeup collection and what my makeup consumption would look like if I wasn't on YouTube. The thought that prompted me to film this video, I was thinking the other day about how it's so funny to me that according to YouTube standards, my collection is considered small. Some people might even call my collection minimal. But if you were to compare my makeup collection to the average person's makeup, like even the average makeup enthusiast that's not on YouTube, I would say my collection is not minimal. I mean, it's definitely not huge, but I have at least a handful of products in every category, whereas before I was on YouTube, even though I was into makeup, I watched a lot of beauty videos, there were a lot of categories where I only had 1 or 2 products. So I thought back to that time before I was on YouTube, what products I had, how many things I had in each category in order to figure out what I think my collection would look like now if I still was not on YouTube. And I'm just gonna go ahead and get right into it. So for foundation, normally I'd only have 1 or 2 foundations at a time. So I picked the Colourpop Pretty Fresh foundation. I talk about this so often. It's just my favorite foundation. It has good medium coverage, satin finish, good staying power, a little bit blurring on the skin. It's just a really reliable formula. I think this would probably be my everyday foundation. I would just wear this for just any occasion. I did decide to pick a second foundation, and I went with the Physicians Formula Butter Believe It foundation. This one actually looks pretty similar to the Colourpop one on the skin. It just has a little bit more coverage. This one I would say is full coverage. The Colourpop one I would say is medium buildable. But this one is great when you want something just really long wearing. It also has a pretty satin finish, maybe a little bit more matte than the Colourpop one, but I don't find it drying at all. This would probably be more like my special occasion foundation, or just whenever I really want to cover a lot. Maybe I have a lot of breakouts that day or something, this would be the one I would go for. So those would be my 2 foundations. I think I would be very happy with both of those. Then for concealer, I think I would just have 1 concealer, and I went with the NYX Bare With Me Serum Concealer. This is a great everyday concealer. I do find it similar to the Kosas concealer. Not an exact dupe. I feel like this has just a little bit less coverage. I feel like the reason why people consider this a dupe to the Kosas is because of the way it sits on the skin. It does sit on the under eyes in a very similar way, just a very smooth but hydrated look, and it doesn't crease nearly as much as other concealers. It's very lightweight. Another one that I feel like I can always just rely on to look good on my under eyes, so that would be my concealer. And then for face powder, I would also just have 1 powder, and I would probably just keep my e.l.f. Halo Glow setting powder. This is actually about to be the only powder that I own anyway, which I can't believe I'm saying that. That's like the first time that's ever happened in the history of my channel, where I've only had 1 face powder in my collection. But I love this powder. It is so good. I seriously think that this could be a high-end powder. It's so finely milled. It's very lightweight. I'm not too picky when it comes to powder, but my favorite thing to look for in a powder is that it's just really lightweight and finely milled. I don't want it to look like I'm wearing a ton of powder. I don't want it to feel heavy. I don't want to be adding an extra layer of heaviness to my makeup. And this one is just super lightweight. It works for both the under eyes and the face. So I think it would be a great just single powder to own. So for blush, I did pick more than 1 blush because I do remember having a handful of blushes even before I was on YouTube. So I think I would probably have the Flower Beauty Flower Pots blush. Before YouTube I had, and I was a big fan of the Milani blush in Romantic Rose that looked like this. So that's part of the reason why I picked this, because it just looks like something I would have bought before I was on YouTube. Now I don't think that blush is very good. It was back in 2015, but now there are so many better drugstore blush formulas, this being one of them. This one is so much more creamy, even though it's a powder. It's just a lot softer and smoother than the Milani one. That one was just kind of dry. But did I say the shade name? This is the shade Sweet Pea. It's a great cool pink blush, so that would probably be one of my most used blushes, I think. I also would probably have the Milani Baked Blush in Luminoso. This is just such a classic. I feel like everybody knows about this blush at this point. It's been around for years. It is still so good. Even though I don't think that Romantic Rose blush from Milani stood the test of time, this one has definitely stood the test of time. This is just so beautiful, even though it is glowy. And it's almost like a blush and a highlighter in one. It doesn't have any like big glitter particles or anything, just has a really beautiful pearlescent sort of glow. So that way I would have more of a cool pink blush and then a warm peachy blush, which are really the two types of blush tones that I would want to have in my collection. I would probably also have at least one cream blush if I wasn't on YouTube, and I went with the e.l.f. Luminous Putty Blush for this category. This is in the shade Maui. Another really good neutral shade. This one is more like a neutral pink than the flower shade, so that way I'd have kind of an in-between when I don't want to go super cool with my blush. This is such an easy cream blush formula to work with. It is more on the sheer side, but it's not so sheer that it doesn't show up. It's more just sheer in a sense that you can't really mess it up, and that's what I love about this one. So I think that would be a good cream blush to have in my minimalist non-YouTuber collection. And as far as bronzer, I remember before I was on YouTube, I think I only had like one bronzer, and it was from e.l.f. And right now, one of my favorite bronzers is the e.l.f. Putty Bronzer. I have the shade Feelin' Shady, which is really more of a contour. I would probably have this one and a more warm-toned one. So I know I've heard good things about the shade Tan Lines as well, which I think is the lightest warm-toned shade in this line. But Feelin' Shady is the perfect contour tone, and I feel like it's hard to find a true contour like this at the drugstore. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of warm bronzers at the drugstore, but true contour shades are a little bit harder to find. But this is a really good one. Same as the blush, it's more sheer than a lot of other cream products, but that's what I love about it so much, especially for a bronzer, because bronzer, especially on my fair skin, it can look really harsh and muddy if I'm not careful, but this one, I don't even have to worry about being careful with it because you really can't mess it up. Like, you really can't apply too much. I mean, I'm sure you could, but if you accidentally pick up too much on your brush, it's not the end of the world. It'll blend out really quickly. So that would probably be the bronzer formula that I would have. All right, so next for highlighter. This was a tough one for me because before I was on YouTube, highlighter wasn't really that popular, and I don't think I had any highlighters back then. But I was going through my collection and thinking, if I were, let's say I quit YouTube, which that's not happening, by the way. That thought makes me so sad. But let's say I were quitting YouTube and deciding what makeup I actually want to keep in my more realistic, regular person makeup collection. I would probably want to keep my Nabla highlighter. This is one that I heard about through YouTube. A lot of YouTubers hyped it up really a couple years ago, and I love this formula. I don't know if it's so popular anymore, but it should be because this is one of the best highlighters. It is high-end, one of the few high-end products that I picked for this video. I think if I just had like one highlighter, this would be it. It might not be this shade. I have the shade Privilege, which is a peachy golden highlighter. I would probably either have this one or Ozone, which I haven't tried, but that one is a more just like light, pearly, champagne kind of color. This one's a little bit more of a specific shade. So I don't know if this is the one I would have if I only had one. This is actually the highlighter that I have on today, in addition to a very glowy blush. But that is what's on my cheekbones. Gorgeous formula. This is another one that you really cannot mess up. Like, there are certain highlighters where if you apply too much, it's gonna look thick and textured, but this one is just so smooth, so lightweight. You could pile it on and it's not gonna look textured. I think this is one of the best highlighters for the tip of the nose, even for the forehead if you like to highlight on the forehead at all, because it doesn't emphasize texture whatsoever. So, did I say that enough? Doesn't emphasize texture. Yeah, I think this is one of the best highlighter formulas. It's been out for a while, but it is still one of the best, and I think if I were like decluttering my collection and only keeping a handful of things for my non-YouTuber collection, this would be it. This would be it. So those are all of the face products. Moving into the eye category now. For eyeshadow primer, I would go with the CoverGirl Lid Lockup Primer. I've talked about this recently. I think this is such a hidden gem. It really does lock your eyeshadows into place. It is a little bit tacky as well, so it holds on to shimmers really nicely. Sometimes I like to set my lid from like the crease up just so that the mattes will blend well, but this keeps shadows from creasing and fading, keeps them in place all day. I've never had an eyeshadow crease with this eyeshadow primer, so this is the one I would go for. And then for brows, I would just want to keep these two. So this is the NYX Thick-It Stick-It Brow Gel. I have the shade Cool Blonde. This is the only brow gel I've ever found that is pigmented enough to fill in my brows, but not so pigmented that it's making a mess and like really hard to work with. It does live up to the name though. It is sticky, like it will hold your brows in place, but that's what I like about it. The only thing I don't love is that the brush is kind of big. Like I wish they would make the brush just a little bit smaller, but it doesn't really bother me. Sometimes I'll get like a little bit of the brow gel like underneath my eyebrow and I'll just kind of wipe it away with a finger, but usually to do the tail of my brows, I'll kind of turn it in like this, almost hold it like a pencil and use the tip to draw through my brows, and that way I'm able to still get some good precision with it. But I love this stuff so much. I've had this same tube for almost 6 months now and it's still going strong. I'm not sure how long this is gonna last, but still going strong. So that would definitely be in my makeup collection. And then I also really like the NYX Lift and Snatch brow pen. It's just a brush tip brow pen, really nice fine point so you're able to get super hair-like strokes with this. Normally I'll just use these together, so I'll go through my brows with the brow gel, and then after that dries, I'll just go through any sparse areas that the brow gel didn't fully fill in. I'll just kind of flick a few little strokes of this in there, and I'll especially do just a few in kind of like the front part of my brow with this, and that's really all I would need. I was thinking, lately I have been using the Kokie brow pencils, and I do love a lot of products from Kokie, but honestly, I don't think I would have tried Kokie if it weren't for YouTube, because a lot of the Kokie products that I have were sent in PR, so that was why I didn't include really any of their products. I was trying to think of the brands that I know I bought from pre-YouTube before I received PR. So let's move into eyeshadow palettes now. I definitely think I would probably have 5 to 10 palettes in my collection. I think I would have a pretty small collection, but I would still want to have some variety. I remember having probably like 5 or 6 palettes before I was on YouTube, so I picked a little bit of a variety here. I do think I would probably have a couple of high-end palettes because even before YouTube, I remember I had some Too Faced palettes. That was like the main brand, like the main high-end brand that I was into back in like 2016. I don't think I would have any Too Faced palettes now, but I think I would probably have one of the Anastasia palettes, probably the Soft Glam, or maybe Modern Renaissance. I don't have that one anymore because it just got old and expired, but probably either this one or Modern Renaissance I would have. These are those palettes that, I mean, they've been around for a while, but a lot of people, even non-YouTubers, even people who aren't that into makeup like we are, you know? A lot of people know these palettes and own these palettes. A lot of my friends have this palette. So this would probably be one of my most used palettes. It would probably be my main like neutral palette that I would use. I also bought a lot of Wet n Wild eyeshadows back before I was on YouTube. So I definitely think I would have either one of their 5 pans or their 10 pans. I used to love Walking on Eggshells. In fact, I've panned 2 separate Walking on Eggshells palettes from Wet n Wild. One was the old trio, and then I had the more updated, like the reformulated quad version of Walking on Eggshells. Now they sell a Walking on Eggshells 5 pan, which I haven't tried, but that might be one of the ones I would have. I also went ahead and chose the Call Me Sunshine palette. I love this one too. Great warm golden toned palette. Very affordable, really just incredible formula for the price. So I would probably have this one or another one of the Wet n Wild palettes like this. And then even though this isn't one of my favorite formulas, I would probably own one of the e.l.f. bite-sized quads just because it's affordable. This is totally the kind of thing that I would buy before I was on YouTube. I would probably have this one, the Cream and Sugar shade. These are totally the kind of shades that I would wear on a day-to-day basis. Even in like high school and college, these were the kinds of shades I was wearing. And even though I don't think there's anything remarkable about this eyeshadow formula, I do still think it's good for the price, and I think it's a good just little everyday quad to have. So that would probably be something I would keep in my makeup bag or that I would travel with. And then I would probably want to have just maybe one or two colorful palettes. So I went with the BH Cosmetics Summer in Saint-Tropez palette because this is one of my favorite colorful palettes. It's very affordable. It has a really good variety of different pops of color, but it also has some really wearable shades. I think this is a great colorful palette for beginners or people who aren't on YouTube, people who aren't wearing a ton of colorful looks all the time, because there are some more muted shades in here, but the colorful shades are really easy to work with, really pigmented, but also not super intimidating. So that is probably the colorful palette that I would have. That's a pretty small palette collection, I'm sure I would have a few more here and there, but those are the ones I think would be a good starting place. I think I would also want to have a couple of one and done eyeshadow options, and this is one of my favorites. I definitely bought this kind of thing pre-YouTube as well. These are the e.l.f. No Budge shadow sticks. I recommend these to everybody. I gave both my mom and my sister one of these for Christmas in their stockings because this is just the kind of thing that anybody, even people that don't wear a ton of makeup, can use. They're super just user-friendly, not super complicated. So Magnetic Pull is such a beautiful grayish taupe. And then Copper Chic, it looks like it would be really dark looking at the packaging, but it's not. It's a good just medium, warm brown shimmer. Magnetic Pull is more of a satin finish, and then Copper Chic has a little bit more shine to it, a little bit more metallic. But I love these for a one and done look, and with these I don't have to wear an eyeshadow primer underneath because once they lock into place, they really don't budge. They don't crease on me. Unless I have a really like emollient moisturizer or sunscreen on my eyelids. So if that's the case, I will just apply like a one layer of powder underneath these just to kind of soak up any oils from that. And when I do that, these will stay in place forever. Well, not forever, but for a whole day. So then for eyeliner, I would probably just have a black and a brown eyeliner. So the black one I chose is this CoverGirl 24-Hour Kohl eyeliner. This is, I mean, nothing to write home about necessarily, but it's affordable, it's creamy, it's very black, and I feel like it's kind of, I don't know, like nobody really talks about this eyeliner formula, but it's a really good drugstore option. And then the brown eyeliner I chose is the CoverGirl Perfect Point Plus eyeliner in the shade Espresso. This is actually what I have on today, actually on both the top and the bottom. I like this because it's soft and creamy. It doesn't dry down like some other eyeliner, so it's not necessarily going to be waterproof, but it stays in place really well for me. And I like this because it's very smudgeable. Like you can draw it on to your lower lash line and you don't have to work really quickly. Like you could even do something else and then smudge it out 5 minutes later, and it's very, you can easily manipulate it. Like today I have it on the top. I'll just kind of smudge some of it on my upper lash line and then take a liner brush and wing that out. And it's just great for that soft, smoky brown wing. So those are probably the two eyeliners I would have. I was thinking I would also probably have a liquid liner, but I don't know if I would need one because both of these do the job, and I feel like you can't really tell the difference between a liquid and a pencil liner. I mean, I guess a pencil liner gives a little bit of a softer look, but at the end of the day, nobody's really going to know the difference. So I think these two would just be everything I would need in the eyeliner department. And then if I wanted a colorful liner, I would probably just use one of the colors in this palette, in the BH palette. For mascara, I would probably bounce between different drugstore formulas, but I went with the good old CoverGirl Lash Blast Volume Mascara. Such a classic. I don't have that one right now, but that is a great mascara formula, very lengthening and separating, but it does give volume as well. I feel like at one point or another we've all probably owned that mascara, but it's still so good. Even though it's been around for ages, it's still one of the best mascara formulas at the drugstore, I would say. And for lip products, I probably would have a handful of lip products. I'd probably have less than 10, but I would have a good little mix of different colors. But for lip liner, I went with the Essence Soft and Precise Lip Pencil. This is a relatively recent discovery for me, or more of a rediscovery. I've had this for a while, but only recently did I really come to love this product. I am wearing this today. I'm wearing it underneath the Bite Lip Crayon in Stinger, but I actually find this formula pretty unique. It almost has a powdery feel. It glides on very smoothly, so I see where it gets the name Soft and Precise, because it's not very hard and stiff or anything. It doesn't drag, but it's also not like really creamy, so it does stay in place well. It's a good balance between being a little bit stiff, but also not drying and not like tough to apply or anything. So I have that in the shade Happy. I'd probably have a handful of different shades, like maybe a more nude shade and probably a red shade, but this is a really good formula, and these are like $3. For a bullet lipstick, I know I've talked about this a lot recently, so I won't spend too much time on it, but this is the Wet n Wild lipstick in Skinny Dipping. This is a nude shade. I love this formula. I remember having some of these Wet n Wild Mega Last lipsticks back before YouTube as well. Not this exact shade, but this would probably just be my go-to bullet lipstick line because it's matte, so it stays in place well, and they have a ton of different color options, and they're really affordable. So I'd probably have a nude one and a red one. I gotta have a red lipstick. even though I don't wear it all the time, I need to have a red lipstick in my collection, so I'd probably have one of the red ones, and then, you know, probably a few more fun pops of color too, but that would be my go-to bullet lipstick formula. And for lip gloss, I chose the e.l.f. Lip Plumping Gloss. The shade I have here is Champagne Glam. I'm not sure if this is the shade that I would have. I would probably have the shade Pink Cosmo. That's a great, just sheer milky pink, gorgeous color. But this is a really nice, somewhat plumping lip formula. It's not painful or anything, but it does have a little bit of that tingle. And I remember buying e.l.f. lip glosses before I was on YouTube. I remember I had the one that would like click up and you had the little fuzzy applicator and you would click it up and it would come through the holes. Did anyone else have those? I remember that was one of the first products that I panned, like that I actually tried to pan, and I felt very accomplished when I used it up. So I think that's what my makeup collection would look like if I weren't on YouTube. A lot of categories, I'd only have one product. Then there are some categories where I would want to have more variety, like with eyeshadows and lipsticks. But yeah, this was a really fun video. It's interesting to think about what I would have if I weren't on YouTube. I definitely enjoy having the size collection that I have now, but I do remember fondly the times when I just had my makeup in a small little set of drawers, or before that, I just had all of my makeup in one makeup bag. But anyway, thank you all for hanging out today. I hope you had fun. If you did, be sure to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I'd love to have you back soon. If you would like to support my channel further, I do have a Patreon and a channel membership where I upload a bonus video every month and I give early access to videos, so I would love to have you over there as well. But otherwise, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I will talk to you again very soon in my next video. Bye!